Today we are solving radical equations. So these are equations that have radicals in them, and we need to find a way to isolate and undo the radical. So the first step is always isolate. Whatever the radical is, you want to get that thing by itself. So take a look at number 4. Do you see how the radical is just this piece? We're going to have to get rid of the plus 7 and get rid of the negative 2 before we do anything with getting rid of the radical. So in number 1, all we have to do is subtract 6 on both sides. That will give us the cube root of x equals 6. Anyone want to take a guess how we undo a third root? We're going to raise it to the third. You want your index and your exponent to be the same because they will then undo each other. And if you raise the left side to the third, you have to also raise the right side to the third. So on the left, we now just have x, and on the right side, we have 6 to the third. If it's a nice number like 6 to the third, we can use our perfects chart for that. So if you happen to have your perfects chart handy, 6 to the third is 216. On a calculator, you may think that the parentheses are a little bit overkill, but I like to put the number in parentheses just in case there's a negative that we have to take into account. You use the little caret, the exponent button, to raise it to the third, and we get 216. This says check for extraneous solutions. That just means that sometimes the solutions may not perfectly work. It is worthwhile to take a moment and do the third root of x plus 6 just to see. So if you remember how to do the third root in your calculator, the third root of 216, oops, I added an extra number in there, plus 6, that does give me 12. And I will show you some of the things that you should look out for that are clues that maybe there are going to be extraneous solutions. Number 2. What do you think we need to do first in number 2? We need to divide by negative 2. We want to isolate the radical, so we're trying to get everything away from this radical. So we have the square root of 6x. Notice there's no index. That means it's a square root equals positive 8. How do we undo a square root? Square. 8 squared is 64. And then finish this by dividing both sides by 6. To get x equals 10.67. On your assignment, it's going to be multiple choice. So if it has the answers as a fraction, you could change this to a fraction. This is 32 thirds. It just depends on what they have the option. So that's the nice thing about today is that it's multiple choice, so you can see what your answers are supposed to look like. Number 3, we would start by subtracting 5. Remember, you always start with the addition or subtraction. It's like we're doing PEMDAS backwards. When you're solving equations, you start with addition and subtraction, then you do division or multiplication, then you deal with exponents, then you deal with parentheses. You do PEMDAS backwards when you're solving. So we have the square root of 4x minus 7 equals negative 3. To undo the square root, we square. What is negative 3 squared? Positive 9. If you type into your calculator -3 squared, your calculator is going to tell you -9, because what your calculator is doing is 3 squared and then sticking the negative onto it. If you put the -3 in parentheses and then square it, it is +9. -3 times -3 is +9. Now we need to finish solving this, so we would add 7 to both sides to get 4x equals 16. So x equals 4. Now, I am going to check this answer, and here's why. A negative number. Does a square root typically negative number? The square number, I am going to check this answer just to make sure that it actually works. That's cool, program. Just quit for no reason. It didn't grab all of that, did it? Cool. We found that x was 6 or x was 4, right? Okay. It when it closed, it lost my stuff. I'm going to try this back in the original equation. So right in here. So I'm going to grab my calculator and try to type this in exactly as it looks. So I've got the square root of 4 times 4 minus 7 out of the square root plus 5. It gives me 8. It's supposed to give me 2. So this is an extraneous solution that doesn't actually work, which means our answer is no solutions. Okay, so the red flag here for me was we had to square a negative number. We did an even exponent with a negative number. The other thing that's kind of a clue to me is that in this step right here, before we squared both sides, we had a square root equaling a negative number, which, hey, we should probably check this answer, and the answer didn't actually work. All right, I want you to try number 4 on your own. So start by isolating the radical, raise both sides to the 4th, figure out what your solution is, and then see if you know how to check that solution. I subtracted 7 on both sides. I divided both sides by -2. And now I'm ready to raise both sides to the same number as the index. So raise both sides to the 4th. And in my calculator, I would do 5 raised to the 4th. That's 625. And then finish solving by dividing by 2. I got 312.5. Now, there's nothing in here that really leads me to think that this solution might not work. We didn't have 4th root equaling a negative number. We didn't have to raise a negative number to the 4th. But just to be safe, I'm going to check this. -2 times, if you're using a scientific calculator, you would type in 4 and then second exponent button to get the x root, and then the 2 times whatever. In this calculator, I use math button number 5, and I do the 4th root of 2 times 312.5, and then we add 7, and we get -3 as our answer. So this answer is absolutely fine. Our solution is 312.5.